Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Jamaica's opposition leader advises government on a slew of things that need improving in Jamaica. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 13th March 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. In addressing citizens' concerns, leader of the opposition of Jamaica, Mark Golding, lashed the governing JLP for various issues he believes need improving. Golding is also of the belief that the finance minister is bullying police and teachers while excluding certain contract workers. Nasika Aleman of CVM Live has this report.
There are a lot of issues. This is why the government is losing favor with the people, because they're not running the country in a way that makes people understand what's going on and buys into the whole process. They alienate people by the way in which they do things.
That's leader of the opposition Mark Golding during a walk through areas of Manchester to engage with citizens and address their concerns. The first of which is the party's readiness for the local government election, as he silenced concern that the party's candidates aren't yet settled.
One or two divisions where we're still sorting those out, but for the most part we're ready. And listen, man, the local government elections have been postponed 3 times, and the government doesn't want to face the people because they know the people are angry and frustrated with them, because the government of Andrew Holness is not dealing with the people in the right way. There are too many things going wrong. There's too much corruption and there's too much frustration amongst the people.
And the finance minister has been bullying teachers and police, according to Golding, regarding the most recent compensation disagreements.
Telling them that if they don't sign to what is there on the table now, they're going to lose their back money for years and won't get paid it for years. That's not the way to conduct respectful negotiations with public servants. No. And there are things that can be done. The money's in the budget for this year to cover the back pay. Pay that into escrow, expense it this year, so that next year when we settle and we've agreed, hopefully we reach a good agreement, the money can be paid then without even going through next year's budget.
And he's not yet done with Dr. Clark. Addressing the minister's budget presentation in relation to contract workers and the removal of guarantor requirement for PATH students, Golding calls for the changes to be applied to everyone involved.
It needs to be a systemic thing where all contract workers who are really permanently employed need to have their full range of rights. And also with the student loan guarantees. Yes, we're glad that PATH children from families which are on PATH won't have to find guarantors, but we have said eliminate the guarantor requirement altogether.
Nasika Aliman reporting for CVM Live.
Police groups reject claims that they have rejected government's wage offer. Anthony Logg of TVJ News reports.
Holding ground, the position of the 3 police groups in the ongoing wage negotiations with the government. Frustration has, however, been growing among members who've been calling on the leader of the groups to vote on the government's wage offer. But at a press conference on Thursday, Chairman of the Police Federation, Corporal Rohan James, who represents rank and file members, addressed the matter.
We have not rejected any aspect of compensation because that is not within the remit of the executive body, and we have not rejected the compensation review. We simply demand the information in totality from the government of Jamaica.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the government has set aside $11.8 billion for increased wages to the police groups under the compensation review. However, Chairman of the Police Officers Association Senior Superintendent Wayne Cameron pointed to anomalies with some pay scales and conversion methods, which he says put some of his members at a disadvantage.
that having highlighted the challenges in writing at meetings and not getting a favorable response is what has become frustrating to the Officers Association and its joint groups. That is what is affecting us. So when those pronouncements are made about 600 million to pay the officers, we cannot accept 600 million with those types of issues that I just pointed to.
So, with the chairman making their position clear, it's left to be seen if and how soon these issues would be addressed by the finance ministry. Until then,
we ask of our membership to continue to hold strain, have faith and trust in our position so that we can provide you with the information in your best interest.
We will not hold ourselves accountable for any issues that is not going to work to the advantage of the officer corps and the members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the District Constables Association, Damian Price, says based on the offer proposed, his members believe they deserve more.
We believe in your welfare, and if we don't carefully examine when we sign, you'll cry in the future.
Anthony Lug, TVJ News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Over in Antigua, the opposition leader there, Jamal Pringle, has questioned the way the country's economic growth figures have been calculated and whether they have taken into account the rate of inflation. He commented on the issue as he opened the budget debate in Parliament's lower house on Thursday morning. Garfield Burford of ABS News reports.
The opposition leader spoke for over 3 hours in a presentation in which he was critical of the government over what he said are unresolved issues needing to be addressed. He acknowledged there was growth in the country's economy in 2022.
Because when the member got up and boasted about the 8.5% growth, we're not disputing that they might have growth in the economy because persons are trying to get back on their feet.
But he seemed to take issue with how it was calculated.
Growth is based on non-revenue returning assets and even social ills. Mr. Speaker, crime and personal loss, these things are used to calculate growth in GDP.
The opposition leader also questioned if it was growth in nominal or real gross domestic product, GDP.
The member would agree, if he's honest, that the 8.5% growth that he spoke of were nominal figures, GDP figures, Mr. Speaker. They're raw data that didn't take, Mr. Speaker, the inflation rate of 9.2% into account.
The growth figures provided were real GDP figures which are adjusted for inflation. The government members seemed to welcome at least one statement Mr. Pringle made.
We understand that hotels are operating and things are happening, other businesses from overseas, things are happening in the economy because persons are not sitting back. But this is to no benefit of your government. This is the fact that the people realize that if they're going to depend on this government, they're going to remain in exile. So persons are taking their monies and invest it, hoping that things will happen.
House Speaker Sir Gerald Watt KC asked him to stay on the budget, noting he was digressing to disparate topics.
You have been on the budget, you've gone off the budget a number of times.
No.
And I'm simply saying, to get personal now and to get into this backward is really not a part of the budget. So I'm asking you politely to speak to the budget, leave the little sneering remarks and so on out of it. We can get to that later in the session. But not today, the budget.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Among the points he raised was the need for greater coordination among officials in works and public utilities, as well as a call for updates on LIAT and the Western Imperial Special Economic Zone.
The Caribbean states of Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia held a roundtable discussion with U.S. officials led by Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Treasury on the 25th of February to discuss the challenges and threats faced by Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Programs, CIPs, according to an OECS press release. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline provides details.
All of the Prime Ministers represented and Citizenship by Investment Unit heads were in attendance alongside other relevant members of their parties as they engaged in what was described as a frank discussion with a number of U.S. government officials regarding certain specifics of the Citizenship by Investment Programs, CIPs. The meeting, which took place in St. Kitts and Nevis, concluded with the Caribbean Five agreeing to 6 significant stipulations for their CIPs as proposed by the Americans. These include collective agreement on the treatment of denials, conducting interviews with applicants, whether virtual or in person. Each jurisdiction will run checks on each applicant with the Financial Intelligence Unit of its respective country, audit the programs annually or every 2 years in accordance with international accepted standards, request law enforcement assistance in retrieving revoked or recalled passports, and suspend processing applications from Russians and Belarusians. 4 jurisdictions have already suspended applications, and Grenada, which processes applications from Russians and Belarusians, with enhanced due diligence, will suspend processing new applications from Russia and Belarus from the 31st of March. The attendees agreed to convene a technical discussion to assess the status of implementing these new principles within the next 4 to 6 months. The joint press release made clear that the Americans recognize that the Caribbean CIPs provided a legitimate service and have assisted in the survival of participating economies, and furthermore that such revenues had been invaluable in making the Eastern Caribbean states more economically resilient in the face of natural disasters and other external shocks. The conclave also agreed to acknowledge that the dismantling of the region's CIPs would severely compromise the prosperity and prospects of the countries, triggering a plethora of negative social consequences domestically and potentially leading to an upsurge in criminality, among other pathologies. According to the joint statement, the CBI states have requested that the Americans assist in facilitating a similar agreement on the same 6 principles, also with the European Union and the United Kingdom. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Trinidad's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has denied claims made by opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar. He says the People's National Movement is not responsible for the persecution of those involved in the now discontinued corruption case surrounding the Piarco Airport. TTT News has more.
Dr. Rowley, speaking in Barataria on Thursday night, said Mrs. Persad-Bissessar, quote, knew what she was doing, end quote, when on Monday at a political forum, she said the PNM was behind the arrests and charges. He warned that believing her might not only lead to more corruption, but could affect similar court cases.
Could tell the world that people who pass through the judicial process and under due process, they were made to answer up to a point, allegations made to them. And the law, the Constitution kicked in, and the matter was discontinued. And the former Prime Minister and the opposition leader went on a tirade to tell the world that all those matters in Piarco Airport and those people who got into difficulty there, it was the PNM that was going after people for political reasons, and we suffer people, and and we know that is not so.
The Prime Minister also brought up questions about the U.S. Department of State's rating of TNT and placing the country on a Tier 2 watch list. He said this indicated that public officials, including MPs, may be complicit in human trafficking, thus slowing the prosecution process and resulting in TNTs having no convictions in human trafficking matters.
Hubbards is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at HubbardsHardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.